So here we are at another system that needs to be rebuilt. Originally the house had an old cast iron furnace. There was a major flood in the basement, from what I understand, in the area. So the insurance company paid for renovating the basement and replaced the old boiler. What they put in place by a well-known company was a low mid-efficiency cast iron boiler by Whale McLean, which itself is a beautiful boiler. The only issue with it is that it cannot generate low temperature waters without condensation, and then condensation kills it. So the way they piped this system was using 2-inch boiler loop going around, which is a little bit oversized considering the boiler itself is only 140,000 BTUs. They reversed the boiler pump a couple of times. Whoever installed it in the wrong direction, and of course that voided the warranty. This is the third boiler pump, from what I understand, the third pair of it. So right now this boiler operates at a whopping 180 degree Fahrenheit set point temperature, and they use that incredible temperature to put into this air handler here, as well as baseboard radiators all throughout the house, which would be all right. The issue is that they also put this high temperature water straight into the floor. So you cannot put 180 degree water in the floor without damaging it. So I imagine all the concrete is already cracked up. And look at this, the cheapest water distribution manifold they use for radiant floor, that is for potable water. And they went about it as cheap as humanly possible. And from what I understand, a second company, equally competent, came, and this is already the upgraded, improved system. So needless to say, there is no heat upstairs in the radiators, no heat downstairs in the radiators. The floor, half of it works, the other half doesn't. They don't know why. Everything is mislabeled. There is no circulation. The people are going cold in the house, so they had enough at this point, and they called us, and we need to replace pretty much everything, including the boiler. Look at this beautiful organ pipe setup. They are pushing into corrugated gas lines pretty much to couple it to the existing supply returns for the radiators upstairs. I mean, really, 1 inch comes in, they dumb it down to 3/4, and to add insult to injury, they put it through these gas lines, which create so much turbulence that it kills whatever little flow they had. And just for good measure, they kink and bend the pipes in a couple of places to make sure that there's absolutely no flow. Another thing I noticed, there are 3 outgoing lines, and there's only 2 incoming. Where is the return for one of the manifold sets from upstairs? That remains to be seen. We will need to disconnect, remove, and blow out every single line, trying to find the pairs which belongs to where. We will need to put flow control valve so we can control the flow to every single radiator loop upstairs, and then flush out the system, because it's chock full, as you can see from the color of the pipe. It's chock full of rust. There's so much rust in it, the water is actually black. We'll demonstrate it when we are draining the system, which is not a miracle with a cast iron boiler, but for Lord's sake, at least put in a magnetic filter to take it out of the system, right? So it's a disaster. Unfortunately, we run into these situations a lot, where the original incompetent and nonsensical install is compounded by ill-fated and equally incompetent repair attempts, and then finally the homeowner surrenders and says, okay, well, just make it work and start from scratch. That's what we need to do. We will be keeping absolutely nothing you see here, everything except this expansion tank arm and the tank and the pump relay. Everything else will be gone. And we keep this beautiful indirect heater. I don't think they could have found a cheaper one, but obviously they found a nice little cheap one. So everything is coming out. So we are on a time, we are on the clock, because because there's an elderly gentleman in the house who needs heat. We picked a nice warm day, so hopefully by tonight we will partially restore heat in the house, and by tomorrow night we need to be completely done, and they can enjoy finally a working system. We'll be replacing this Well McLean boiler with an IBC 199 SL boiler, which is a beautiful condensing boiler. Will go in the wall here. We need to put checkerboards and plywood and whatnot, and Arella hydraulic headers and hardware. And we'll see how fast we can get everything working normal back into circulation. So draining the water, well, water in a wide meaning of the word. This sludge is what fills the system. And now we need to first drain everything out. It's gonna take a few minutes because it's a lot of it. So it is best to start with a clean slate. All that rubbish was removed. And we will now proceed. It is now almost midnight, and finally the system rebuild is complete. Everything is operating. All the radiators are heating the house, the air handler, the radiant floor, the boiler is firing. Everything is working. So basically, all that bottleneck is now gone. It used to be 1 inch done down to 3/4 and then into a corrugated pipe. It's all being replaced with 1 inch copper all the way back to the supplies, and the 1.25 inch returns have been collected together into 1.25 inch going back down to the system. Since there are 3 separate baseboard heaters upstairs, we now can control the flow through these Armstrong flow control valves. So if one of them is getting too much heat or the other one not enough, we can fine tune the flow to those radiators. Needless to say, the wiring, the original wiring, was just as messed up as the piping, but now it has been sorted out. The floor is mixed down with a Caleffi 1 inch mixing valve to 115, 120 Fahrenheit. No longer damaging the floor with high temperature waters. We had good flows over all the loops. The magnetic separator is in. Even though we washed the system and flushed it, there is still rust particles here and there. This will collect them. And our next visit we will drain and see the black gold. So it's a Rella hydraulic header that made this beautiful install possible. Rella manifold, circulators, beautifully IBC SL199 G3 boiler. I think we can safely say that this has been an improvement over what was here before. At least I'd like to think so. Oh, one other thing. There was not one floor sensing thermostat in this basement, so how do you have floor heating without a floor sensor? We rectified that. We mounted a floor sensing thermostat behind the door, set it to 26. We are measuring the floor temperature on the door jamb. It seems to be accurate. 21 now, target 26. So now the whole basement is controlled from here. No more ambient controllers trying to set floor temperatures. So I think it came out pretty